Hi everyone, today you worked in the lab to do an experiment to find how much carbon dioxide is produced by antacid tablets. Now you should be starting to work on your lab reports. So in order to complete your lab reports, you're going to need to calculate the volume of each balloon, as well as create a graph in Excel of the volume versus the number of tablets used. So before you can create the graph, you're going to need to calculate the volume for each balloon. These calculations are only examples. My numbers will not match yours. My numbers are made up. So this is just an example for you to follow. For this experiment, you should round your answers to all calculations to 4 significant figures. For example, on trial 1, we used one antacid tablet. Before you can calculate the volume, you have to calculate the radius of the balloon. So, to do so, you have the formula radius equals circumference divided by 2 pi. My make-believe circumference is 20.23 centimeters divided by 2 pi gives me a radius of 3.234 centimeters. So then I can take my radius and plug it into the volume equation. So volume equals 4/3 times pi times radius cubed. When I plug in my radius, 3.234 centimeters that I just calculated, I will get a volume of 141.7 centimeters cubed. I would then do the same thing for trial 2, make-believe numbers again, to get my second volume, and then I would do the same thing for trial 3 with my make-believe numbers to get a third volume. Once you have your 3 volumes complete, then you're going to go into Excel and create your graph. So you're going to open up Microsoft Excel. You should come up with a blank spreadsheet. Before you start the graph, you're going to need to plug in your x and y values. When you create a graph, your x values are your independent variables and your y values are your dependent variables. So in this case, the number of tablets would be the independent variable and the volume would be the dependent variable, because the volume of the balloons depends on the number of tablets used. So here in column A, we're just going to put the x values, which we said were number of tablets. And in the B column, we're going to put the y values, which are volume. So we had 3 tablets, and we calculated volumes of 141.7, 1133, and 3825. And then just back to the first cell. So now that you have your information entered, you can start your graph. To do so, you're going to go to Insert, Scatter, and you're going to go to Scatter with Straight Lines and Markers, because we don't want curved lines for this experiment. When you click that, you should come up with a pre-filled chart. This is good. You can delete the key. We don't need it for this experiment. You can change the title. Just click and then click again. You can leave volume of carbon dioxide. To create a subscript, you go to Home, Font, Subscript right here. Click OK. Carbon dioxide, and then you have to change it back. Take it off of subscript versus number of antacid tablets. I don't like it on 2 lines, so I would just make the font a little smaller to keep it all on 1 line. Okay, so now we have a title to our graph. Another thing I'm not real fond of are the square markers. So you can change that by double-clicking your line. When you double-click the line, go to Marker Options, Built-in, type, the circle, size 5. Then you can go to line style, change the width to 1.5, and click close. So that made your markers circles and your line is thinner, so it's easier to see the markers. Now, notice that your values on the horizontal axis are in halves. We don't need halves because we used whole tablets. So if you double click on the numbers, you'll come up with your axis options box. You can change the maximum by clicking fixed, setting it to 4 just to keep our graph centered and nice. You can change the major and minor units to 1. Just click fixed and change the values. Change the tick marks to cross. And this is just, it's easier to follow with your eyes when the tick values, the tick marks are crossed. Click close. And then we're going to do the same thing with the vertical axis. Double click the numbers. The minimum's fine, the maximum would change to 4,000. It doesn't need to be enormous. Change the tick marks to cross and click close. Now we need to add, just clicking in the white space to clear my mouse. Now you need to add axis labels. To do so, you're going to go under Chart Tools, go to Layout, Axis Titles. For the horizontal axis, you're going to display the title below the axis. Just click in it to change the name. This is Number of Antacid Tablets. And then just click off in the white space. To do the vertical axis title, I like the rotated title. That's what I require for my class. Other classes may require different things. I like the rotated title. Just click in it to change the title. This is volume of CO. Again, to insert the subscript, you're going to go to subscript, click OK, click 2, and then just click off the box. Okay, so we have our graph. So it's good. Now, at this point, you may want to drag your graph over here and make it a little larger, just so it's easier to see what you have going on here. We're going to insert grid lines so that it's easier to follow the numbers that we've chosen. You're going to go under Chart Tools, you're going to go to Layout, going to go to Grid Lines, Horizontal Grid Lines. For horizontal, put major and minor, so that it follows the major ones, which are these that correspond with the numbers. The minor correspond with the in-between lines. Then you'll do your grid lines for the vertical. For vertical, you're going to just display major grid lines, because we only need to know 1, 2, and 3. We don't need to know in between. Okay? So now that you have your grid lines and your graph and your labels, I want you to insert a trend line. The trend line is just to show how close your values are to a straight line. So you're going to go to Trend Line, Linear Trend Line. See, it's inserted this black trend line into your chart. Once you've done that, double click on the trend line. You're going to display equation on chart and display R squared value on chart. And then click close. Notice it put your equation and your R squared here. You can just move it over. As long as it's in an empty space, it doesn't matter where you put it. I would, oops, sorry about that. I would move it, and then it's hard to see with the lines behind it, so if you double click on it, you can go to Fill, Solid Fill, change the color to white, and then you can go to Border Color, Solid Line, and you can leave it on the preset blue, just so that it's easier to see as opposed to the gray and black lines in the background. Click Close. You can click off into the white space. Now you'll notice that when you added the trend line, it changed the values on your vertical axis. So to change it back to 0, just double click on the numbers, change your minimum, click fixed and change it to 0, and then click close. Now you're back at 0. At this point your graph is done. Now you'll just need to, you can copy the graph into Microsoft Word, into your lab report, just like so. You might want to change the page layout to landscape, and then you can paste your graph, make it a little larger to the page. So this is your graph. There you go. Now you can print it out with your lab report. If it moved things over, you can just move that back. So there's your graph. It's important to note that in your equation for the line, you can get your slope, which is this value right here, the number before x. The y-intercept is the number at the end. And an r-squared value is important because the closer r-squared is to 1, the better fit your values are to a straight line. So an r-squared close to 0 would not really be a good thing. Hopefully this all made sense to you guys. If you have any questions, feel free to email me. You can ask me tomorrow after class. Good luck working on your reports. I hope everyone's graphs go well. See you guys tomorrow.